Hello, everyone. I think we're live.
And there we are. Oh, all right. Um, Welcome, everyone, to the second Scion panel. If you were around for last night's panel, then you would have got the spoiler-heavy previews of everything that we've got coming up. Uh, well, actually, only about half to two-thirds of them. I saw the agenda list, which was long,
Yeah.
and in a solid hour, we didn't get through it all. Today, um, now that we have the four core books, from Origin up to God, out or about to come out, then what we wanted to talk about was how the experience of playing Scion changes from tier to tier. How it's not just getting larger die pools and the ability to blow up more things at once, but different kinds of stories and as Michaela and I will confirm the ability to make more and more terrible mistakes as you go along. So, introductions first. Michaela, do you say
Okay.
something about yourself?
Thank you, Jeffrey. I'm Michele Mazzola. I'm a Onyx Buff freelancer from Italy. I worked, I think, for every line since Curseborn, which was announced officially for Onyx Buff. And I happen to be a Scion writer and a Scion developer. I developed alongside Hiromi the God Companion, which now goes under God Player's Guide, and also Rock Goats and Road Trips. So that's those are the books where you can find me not only as a writer but also as one of the people behind the wheel alongside the ever awesome Hiromi.
Thank you. Uh, TJ, tell us about yourself.
Thanks. I have 3 credits currently as a freelancer from Southern California for Onyx Path Publishing. None of them have come out. My second assignment was writing for the Demigod Companion. So I'm looking to seeing that coming out. And I've done a little bit of community content stuff.
Good. And that's also something that I'd like to talk about because if we have people here who are interested in doing writing for the Nexus, it might they might benefit from hearing from
Mhm.
people who have some experience with that. So, Kyle,
Hello, my name is Kyle. Technically, I only have 1 credit so far, so I'm kind of one of the new ones on the team. It will be, Titans Rising War Games, but looking forward to doing a lot more.
good. And Zach.
Hello, I'm Zachary Noddard, he, him, community content and freelance writer. Uh, for Scion, I've got a couple titles out on Storypath Nexus, Therianthropes, Dammit Zeus, and Fresh Ink. And none of my Scion contracted writing is out yet. I think I snuck into God, so that'll be the first one that you see. But God Jumpstart, Titans Rising, and Gifts of the Titans. You'll see my name in there as well, and maybe a couple other places that I might be sneaking in. We'll see.
Oh yeah, I'll chime in as a developer and tell all these awesome writers to not feel bad about their stuff not being out yet. These things are slow behind the scenes,
Mm.
and but we sometimes personally, because I developed a couple of you, we know how good you are at this. So don't be shy about. Oh, my book isn't out. You're here because you're cool and totally deserve to be here. So don't worry about that.
I'm going to start with an open question for any and all of you. So, in your experience with Scion, either writing for it, playing for it, running games for it, of the different tiers of the game, Origin, Hero, Demigod, God. Do you have favorites? Or do you have ones that you tend to gravitate towards? And if so, why?
Hero, I think, is the one of the big standout ones because one, let's be realistic, it's the tier that most games are going to have the most playtime with. Most games won't reach God or Demigod unless you use advanced start rules. And it's also a huge jump from Origin to Hero when you get so many tricks. I do want to run a God level game though. There's a lot of interesting mechanics in there that I really want to get dig my fingers into.
I think going by natural progression, it's difficult to say, oh, I just bought God. I'll play this in maybe 5 or 6 years. Others?
So I am a moody bitch. And it's going to depend on kind of what I feel like kind of playing and kind of what I'm going for. There are certain times where I want to tell a story. I have. I'll point out that what first got me into Scion was Zeus. We just want to talk. Back when it was named Punch Zeus in the Face, and I saw the title of it, and I was like, I want this. I had never played Scion before. I hadn't read the book. That was what brought me in. I have run that in both Origin and Hero and seen it play out in different ways. And if I want to take something that is still kind of just exploring, just touching tipping their toes into the world, Origin's great for that. If I want a more established character that's looking to kind of find their way and make their way in the world, that's where we get hero play. Uh, and and kind of sew up along the lines. Um, Demigod is a place where you are, if you want to have more power, but you're still not the top dog. You still have kind of aspirations of place to go. It's all depending on what story I want to tell or what story I want to play a part as to which one will be at the time.
I'm happy to go last, TJ. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. So right now I've got an Origin level game. Unlike I think kind of the usual default of pre-visitation Scions, maybe they don't know they have any quite connection to sort of the greater um, world. I jammed a bunch of options in Player's Guide. So I have one character who uh, is an underworld escapee. I've got another one who grew up in a another realm, and then a third one that just is a con man. So I think there's a lot of different things that you can do with Origin, especially now with the player's guide. That really kind of expands the play beyond just like, okay, we're just pre-visitation Scions. So yeah, that's been my sweet spot for now, but I am looking forward to God because I'm a big Sandman fan. This is that too. So you can definitely play those kind of stories with that. So
yeah,
sooner or later.
Yes, eventually we will all get to God. Yeah.
As for me, I think I sadly didn't didn't have the chance to run Science Second Edition as much as I would like. I just played a bunch, and it was, to be honest, the campaign I played alongside Jeffrey, David, Elliot, and Spider, and run by Romy. I have a soft spot for Hero and Origin. I think, especially Origin, there's very interesting things to do to explore just how different the world is from our world in a way that now that the books are established, I think we can do something very interesting to strengthen what does truly mean to live in a world when sometimes you get notice on the phone that there's a troll attack down the road, and so you just go the other way. I'd love to play God, to run God as well. I think though that ideally my sweet spot is probably demigod, because I like the middle of the road there, in the sense that you have influence on a scale that's very big, and the conflicts are very big, but you are still not there, so the dangers feel very real, and there's everything we added through the path to apotheosis and the dangers of demigod that I think are probably the spot that from reading the book I'd like the most. Hopefully someday I'm selling Scion to people. There's now around where I live a couple of Italian groups playing Scion that they came to me and asked, "Oh, Michele, do you know have any good urban fantasy game?" And it was like, let me tell you about that. And now they're big Scion fans, but not so much for me. But I'm happy with writing it for now.
I mean, this does give us a sense of the range of things that you can do. I mean, Origin is very, I'd say, first season Supernatural is probably an influence on it. You haven't got that much power. You can do one cool thing, but you're probably going to be fairly desperate most of the time. And hopefully you're dealing with very small scale, very often very human problems. Hero, as Kyle said, is where you get probably the most flexibility that you can have. Still not a tremendous amount of power, but sure, you can occasionally throw someone a city block. That's always nice. Demigod, your options start to become a little more focused because you've got an end goal, but you've got all that extra bubbly power to go with it. And then God, you are the dog that's finally caught the car. It's like, what do I do now? I have literally become a storm god, and weather's complicated. So I think one of the things that they tried to emphasize for this edition of Scion is that really every tier of the game becomes not entirely a different game, but it adds significant new elements to the play style and just to the range of options without it becoming overwhelming or without you needing a third hand to hold all the extra dice that you need. If you were to give advice to someone who's starting off in the game, from your experience, what do you think is the most important thing that you'd want them to pick up? Thanks.
Personally, I think that, well, aside from the advice that with time working as a linear thing as it does, starting now, you have the benefit of having some really cool books available to reach out to that will help you have a very strong foundation right from the start. Of course, you start with Origin and Hero, but now you also have the player's guide, like TJ mentioned, that I think really expands the scope. And then I also always suggest, alongside the player's guide, I personally suggest to grab Titanomachy as one of the first things, and Mysteries of the World. So getting into Scion now, it's a really cool moment to get into Scion, I think. And there's a bit of a device, and then I'll pass the microphone to my colleagues. A bit of the advice to not try to grasp at too much right away, because it can become overwhelming. All those pantheons, all those knickknacks, the birthrights, and all that. So trying to find a balance between all the tools you have for Scion and what you want it to be at your table would be my advice.
Other bits of advice for people?
So something that I've seen as a kind of feeling as a barrier for entry is not knowing about the particular pantheons or the lore, or only really knowing about like one of them. Um, don't don't worry about that. There you have a foundational start in the book, but also the characters aren't going to have a encyclopedic knowledge of the pantheons that they can encounter in the game. If you aren't familiar with a particular pantheon that you run into in play, that's what life would be like in the world. It's not. There are very few people who are going to know every single pantheon, or know every single god. They're certainly not going to pronounce the names correctly. Do not worry about pronouncing names correctly, because I am horrible at that. Yeah. Don't let.
Yeah, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just to finish off. Just don't let that be a concern. If you're concerned, just make sure that you read the material, and just don't play stereotypes, and understand them. Learn a little bit of the cultures from that.
Yeah, I think goodwill and genuine sincerity to try to do right means a lot. Like mistakes could be forgiven as long as you try to learn from them. Also, bit of advice I give, I sometimes see people in various sources saying, "Oh, I'm not sure what to do with all these gods or how to tie these gods in," and especially at origin tier and hero tier. My advice on that is use the gods themselves as little as possible because they're not the main characters of the story. The players are. The story is about your PCs. The gods will be there, like sort of off on the side, maybe saying, "Hey, here's your mission," but they shouldn't be the central focus of the story, except for the rare cases when they are.
Yeah, I would add, don't feel like you have to tackle the world, all of its settings, the terra incognita, the underworlds, the overworlds. Um, don't be afraid to just say, hey, listen, we're going to set it in this place, and these are the pantheons that I'm interested in telling a story about. So choose from these. There's a lot. Don't be afraid to say, like, no, actually, I don't think we're going to include massive mythos in this game. That's fine. You can do that if you're running the game. Um, also, if there's a theme or a particular mythological thing, like the game that I'm running right now, most of the characters had kind of underworld adjacent stuff. So I said, okay, well, now we're running the game about the gritty underbelly of the world, and so far that's been good. So
Nice.
I would say, yeah, narrow the scope when you're starting out. If you want to broaden out, or you've got a bunch of people who are super familiar and they have a big stack of books like I do right here, then yeah, go nuts. But otherwise, like, don't feel afraid to just focus in on what you want to do.
I'd say, going along with that, one of the things I've noticed a lot when people start talking about character ideas for Scion is, they're making a character and it's like, okay, what tier is it? Oh, we're starting at origin, but I want to do this. And they're sort of mapping everything out for themselves all the way to God. I want so much to say, you are going to be playing the game in between those 2 points. And if you have done any gaming, you know that whatever you have planned is not going to work. Your character is going to have strange things happen to them. They're going to meet people, and their whole scheme that you've got worked out here is going to fall apart. There's a flip side of that for people who are the story guides for Scion, by the way. It's a very player-driven game.
Yeah.
They're choosing their deeds, they're choosing what they want to do. And certainly as they start to increase in power, you cannot anticipate what they're going to do. I've written some things that are demigod tier, those are hard enough. God tier, I am frankly terrified of. You know, you set up a plot and then someone looks at it and says, well, I think I'm just going to punch capitalism out of existence. I said, oh, okay. I mean, yes, you can do that, but and you see your entire beautifully crafted plot just evaporate. So for story guides and players, there's a certain nimbleness and adaptability that you need to get used to in the game if you want it to be a kind of happy, chaotic experience for everyone.
I think it's very fitting in a sense because Scion, in many ways, it's about well, you literally write your own legend with the deeds and all that. So it's sorta in a sense of a path of self-discovery and self-affirmation between what you want to do, what your parents, divine parents, and their enemies want you to be, what fate wants you to be, and so as you progress through the tiers, you gather your own identity forged from the crucible of fate, so to say, and also gather the power to uh, affirm your intentions even more. So when you reach to God, which is frankly terrifying to, yes, I agree, to run games for, because a point of the teams of Scion is that when you're a god, there's still a lot of messing with you, but you are a god, and the power to change the world is yours. There are rules, there are there's price, there's enemies, and to go into the direction that TJ mentioned before with Sandman, we know Neil Gaiman says that. The plot of Sandman is Dream being confronted with a choice and then making that choice, and then that applies for Scion as well.
Yeah, I think that really covers the range of options that people have. Now, let's see. I'm asking this right now because it's quiet in the chat, and I want to ask my own questions of people. So, Zach, TJ, you've done community content work. Zach, yours is the one I'm most familiar with, although I'd forgotten that, damn it, Zeus, was a thing. I do remember the inked ones.
Yeah. Well, I've been retweeting the inked ones every time I get a tattoo, and I've gotten like 5 tattoos this year since I wrote it. So I have an appointment to get another one tomorrow. So yeah,
Nice.
as far as what I so the first thing that I wrote was Therianthropes. I was at PAX Unplugged and a couple years ago, and was talking to Dixie, and she was like, "Hey, had you submitted anything?" And I was like, "Yeah, I submitted for this line, and essentially I had submitted for lines Onyx Path had written for too late. I came back from that after having a conversation with her about that, and kind of sat down and read through the books and looked for something that I could pick out on that I felt that I could expand upon, and that's where I looked at the Therianthropes, and we see in various myths shapeshifting of changing into animal forms is not just limited to outsiders, but it's also an aspect that the gods have. So I wanted to work that into being a Scion who was a shapeshifter, as least as it was presented, they were kind of an off, separate thing. Damage Zeus was literally just the I ran Zeus. We just want to talk on Onyx Path's channel. It was my second time playing Scion. It was my first time running a game on stream, and I made all the people pre-made characters, and so I just kind of put those together. If you make NPCs for your games that are Scion characters, it's just a question of formatting them into something that you can hand out to someone, and that's pretty much all Damage Zeus is. And then Fresh Ink was something that I had an idea for a long time, and then researching, I could find 2 gods that were like tattoo gods, so couldn't really like make a book about tattoo gods, especially because at least one of them is coming from a pantheon that's not released yet. But I was still able to kind of use that to as a basis and find a way to work that into the game. And with that, that's what I've written so far for Story Path Nexus for Scion.
Very nice.
I'll pass that over to TJ.
Yeah. So well before I was a freelancer, I think it was like COVID time. As I said before, I'm a fan of Sandman. The New Gods is the first thing I put out for Scion on the Nexus, and it was very much influenced by American Gods, a few other comics. I think Planetary was one of the kind of touchstones. Just kind of a absurd modern pantheon, and yeah, that did all right for a while. At some point, I don't know if Lauren Roy read that, or she read my submission that I did, or what. I kind of got my first and second freelancing gig back to back, so I don't think the developers were talking to each other. So I kind of feel like I broke in twice. But then when a few, what was that, 2 months ago, we had that the contest for you did Fresh Ink for that, right, Zach?
Yep.
What was the name?
Story Path Nexus Game Jam.
That's the one. Yeah. So I did a short little add-on for the player's guide called On Fable Street. So those are the 2 things I've done. You certainly don't have to go out and get like Adobe. You can definitely put stuff in Windows. I know a friend of mine, another freelancer, Sean Creef, puts out a ton of stuff, and he just uses Windows. I usually use Affinity because that's a lot cheaper than Adobe. Then you also have very prolific people like Travis Lake, who does his drafting in the formatting, and I don't understand how he does that, but there you go. So yeah, it's pretty easy, and I think pretty satisfying putting out this stuff out there for people to see. I know I've got an update planned on the New Gods to kind of put it on the level with everything that's come out since then. But my developer wants me to hold off on account of knowing kind of what's behind the curtain on some of the Demigod companion stuff. So once that's out, big update on that one.
And just kind of like touch on what TJ said, it doesn't have to be something that is big. My second best selling community content thing is like 4 pages of text over on one of the other programs that we're not going to mention at the moment. But yeah, we're not here to talk about that game. So, but yeah, you find something that you like in any of the books that you think you can expand on, even if it's just turning a paragraph into a page. Do that 3 or 4 times. You've got 4 pages. You got something that you can throw into the Word template and lay out. I'm not good at layout things. I've done everything in the I've done in the Word template. Uh, Anything that I've put out that's done in Affinity or in Adobe was done by someone else. It was either Travis or Josh Heath, one of the two.
Yeah, utility over volume, I would say, is definitely where you want to go for the community content stuff.
Oh. So this, I think, for the people who are listening in, doing these things for community content. Firstly, there's a huge range that you can do. You get a themed collection of birthrights together. You're set. New pantheons. There have been some really well done new pantheons turn up on the Nexus. Ones, I admit, ones that I had never heard of, which take some work. And they're well researched, they're well written, they're playable, they're fun, always important. And it just keeps adding to the game. And as these have shown, it's also, if you want to do freelance writing for Scion, it's a way to get your foot in the door and say, look, I did this, I can show you the writing that I've done. And it gives people a very clear idea of what you can add to everything. Actually, no, I'm gonna ask Kyle this.
Oh dear.
You're on the spot, Kyle.
So, if there were something for community content that you could put out, what sort of thing would you lean toward?
This is actually pretty on point because of the Mythic Shards announcement on yesterday's panel. I have actually been toying around for years with an idea of what if Scion, but it was a magical girl anime? I've been working for rules on and off of that for a while, and now with Mythic Shards, I basically have no reason to not try to do that.
Lovely.
And have you pitched it yet to Hiromi or anybody working on Mythic Shards yet? Because, I mean,
I pitched the idea as maybe it possibly being a stretch goal, but by the time I actually got around to pitching, the stretch goals were closed for the campaign. So maybe I'll keep it in my back pocket if there's a Mythic Shards 2, oops, more shards.
Electric Shardaloo.
We'll see. I think that the plan for Mythic Shards is to go on crowdfunding in July. That should be that. And so we have the base chapters and the option to add more. I know is there, even if I am not a developer in there. But I do happen to have some knowledge of Mythic Shards. Well, so I expect it to do very well. There's fun stuff in there.
Fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good material there. And just, again, if you're anyone who was at the talk yesterday and heard the sheer amount of material that we've got coming up for Scion, is frankly, I mean, I've done a lot of writing for the game, and I'm like, what? We've got this coming out, and this, and all of these. So it's going to be rolling along. In terms of things that, again, I'm just going to take over for myself for a little while. There are some things that I would like to do that I'm not going to talk about because I would really like to do them. Things that I would like to see. Been asked a few times whether, for example, we're going to have the equivalent of Saints and Monsters 2, and something that expands further on denizens, which I would like to see it is. I think the place where Scion does its best work is in specifics. So if you say, all right, we have this general template for fair folk, but if we're talking about the Peri, or we're talking about the Aishi, talking about your slightly more generic English fairies, then here are the ways to make them unique. Wanted to expand on sorcery, and I literally could not think of anything to add to them. So I'm just a victim of my own success there. It's like, no, they absolutely cover everything. But that would be nice to see someone just run with and expand upon.
I have a couple of things that I'm considering for community content, but there are not things I think I can pitch, so you have no trouble revealing them as is, because you once you're a freelancer, you learn to keep your cards close to the chest sometimes. One would be the Roman gods, but not in Roman as in Rome, as in very old Latium. So you have Angitia, Tinia, and some gods from pre getting in contact with Greece, Rome. So that pantheon there, and some Etruscan as well. And I think another thing I'll probably do sometime someday, it's to make I preface this with the statement that as much as I like the Cthulhu Mythos, I am probably your strongest voice saying that you can separate Scion from the Mask of the Mythos. That Scion, the Cthulhu Mythos in masks are there in their bubble, and that bubble needs the key to open its own gate. That you shouldn't consider them part of Scion by default. They're there, and it's cool they are there. That said, someday I'll probably gonna write a Mythos expansion on the masks and everything, and add some Clark Ashton's meets gods, and I can't live without Satogua started in Scion, so I'll do that someday, and write a big Mythos expansion someday. I'll do that.
I mean, everything that I've seen from player feedback on Mythos, especially, is people just love it. Just the style of it, the amount that it adds to the game. So yeah, expansion always good. Sathagua, god of sleepy toads.
Yeah.
It's a very specific subsection of beasts.
A lazy butt toad, yes.
I mean, this game is all about getting to know all sorts of weird little guys in all their forms, right?
Yeah.
Mentioning, and I think this would also go, I think, for the content that TJ has done, but when you mention sort of Etruscan gods, am I remembering right that we're fairly myth light on those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
we have other pantheons where that's the case. I mean, the Slavic Bogovi, where the writer really had to dig through things in order to effectively create a mythos out of it. Well, mythology, not mythos. The Zemi, where there's like one source, and it's not one you can really trust.
Yeah.
But David built things out of that. So for them, how do you? And this will be both for Michele and TJ. How do you build things up when you don't have that mythological starting point?
You do a lot of research and then try to build a connective tissue the Scion way. That's how I feel it's the right answer. Etruscan will be really difficult to find something. Unlike the gold from ancient Latium, we have some more info on that. We have a pantheon there of gods that predate Jupiter and all that. So that will be the easiest part of the sort of ancient Italy expansion I have in mind, the way I see it.
Yeah, I can't remember whether or not Mysteries of the World had come out when I first started working on that, because I know at some point I went through and I read that a chapter that's all about how to create a pantheon, the steps, like the kind of in-game stuff you should look at. So I think I mean, that's a good place to start. But yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, in my case, it was a lot easier. It was all fiction, so I just kind of picked and out the things that I liked, whether it was stuff from Neil Gaiman, Anasazi Boys, American Gods. I think I pulled a little bit of Harlan Ellison and a couple of other sources. I do have a list of inspirations in there, including like a very dense tome about like the origins of political order. I don't expect people to read any of that, but I happened to be reading it, and it sort of influenced some of where I arranged those pantheons or those gods. But as far as creating personalities where you don't have anything, you just kind of I think figuring out what is the cornerstone relationship look like. Like, is it a collection of gods that are all a family? Are they like a group of, I don't know, soldiers together? What is the relationships between them? And then you can kind of riff on that. Like, okay, well, this god was married to this god, and they used to be married, but now they're divorced. That sort of thing. Um, until you've got enough where it feels kind of lived in, and there's enough you can hang stuff off of plots or whatever. I am a big believer. I think Matthew Dawkins is the one that did that, and my developer here could probably speak to that. But I'm a big believer in trying to like cram as many hooks into every line of words you put on the page. Can't do everyone, but as many as you can fit.
Yeah, being raised into development from Matthew myself, I think that I sort of inherited that like a Pantheon specific purview myself. So I ask to my writers to do that and transmit that idea into things. And I know I pestered TJ about this when we worked, but I think the results paid off definitely. In other things we are not talking about today, and I'm not sure we are allowed to say yet because time zones didn't allow me to watch that specific panel yesterday, but we have stuff coming.
I'd say for anyone who's designing a pantheon, one bit of advice that I've picked up largely from world building things, and especially designing pantheons for games. If you look at it and it's all very clean and it all makes sense, you're not doing it right. Because religion is messy and mythology is messy. And there should be little moments in it where it's like, wait, these two stories don't line up. It's like, yeah, that's just the way it is. And people figure out how to make do with that and then go on. All right, now let's see. That we're going to take a little bit more time to talk, and then I'm going to shift things over to questions and answers. But so folks who are in the chat, if you have questions lined up, I know that we've got one lined up already. If you have other questions, just make some sort of little wave round or jazz hands to get our attention before, and we'll track them up and then take care of them all at once. For the moment, for all of the writers here, are there any particular questions that you would want answered? Either because we have a couple of dozen people listening in now who might be able to offer something, or questions from other writers, developers, any of that sort of thing that you think could also be useful for the audience to hear the answers to.
One I can think of, and I'm very glad to hear what all of you think, is which book related to which tier you'd love to see happen in Scion? So, if there's something you think we should expand on Origin, on Hero, and how? By all means, throw ideas out there. I'd be happy to listen. It's always an interesting topic to discuss.
With that, I mean, what could be expanded upon? Oh, and don't say more pantheons. We know it's more pantheons. And Nax. Everybody wants more Nax, especially heroic Nax. But beyond those, we just take those as a given.
So it does kind of feel like because how Origin and Hero were kickstarted at the same time, a lot of the supplements that came out of that were kind of geared more towards Hero play and Origin play. So I would love to see more Origin level play books out there. So not just the more Nax, which you would is what you would be using in Origin, but also just more tools to use. I know, as TJ mentioned, there's a lot in the player's guide, but give me jump starts, give me plot hook seeds for Origin players,
Okay.
because that's a lot. That's a lot of where people come into the game from. Even if it's a session or two before jumping up to Hero.
Oh, I know Jeffrey and I have been proponents of a book about a whole Origin campaign. So I think that totally meets with our thoughts there. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I am a huge fan of Origin, and I mean, I was just thinking recently of like little genre nudges you could do with an Origin to your game. Slice of life anime Scion. You just things are reasonably comfortable, and you have your one knack that you use to solve your friends' relationship problems or just generally make their life a little bit better. You could do some low-end horror. You could do basic mystery solving. You could do romance. You could do all these things that start to fall a little bit by the wayside as you get up to Hero, but are just perfectly lined up for starting characters.
Set in the world, which I think it's a huge thing with plenty of moral potential to use, I think.
Yes.
I totally agree with you as well, Jeffrey.
Good. We should work together sometime.
Yeah, probably a good idea somewhere along the line. TJ and Kyle, happy to hear your takes as well on which expansion you'd love to see.
I did notice there are some bits that seem like they could use another pass. Like, it notes that for the crafting rules specifically, heroes are able to craft magical items that are not relics, but a lot of players would like more ideas on what are those if you have a magic item that is not a relic.
Yeah, some things we left on the wayside to go back to. Okay. I also happen to agree with that. So you're all agreeable people, so that's great.
Yeah. I think expanding the origins. I think we're all on the same page. Like,
Oh well.
you know, like I think we know the history for Scion. It came out around the same time Trinity Continuum was doing its core, and then Aeon. And it was a similar thing, but I think Trinity Continuum had kind of a stronger core book that could be played by itself. But Scion Origin was not as fully fleshed out as we got until we get the player's guide. So I think for sure adding that. I'd love to see like maybe more folk tales or the kind of things that are a little less connected to one particular pantheon, urban legends, kind of the weird corner cases, I guess.
I think we are indeed all on the same page there. So that's nice. We didn't we didn't prepare this. It's all honest from the writers to you, dear viewers. Very nice. And we do have a bunch of questions and not so much time, so I probably a good
Yeah,
idea.
that last round of questions spurred people on and inspired people. It looks like.
So, Zach, since I think you can see them all lined up.
Yeah. Any possible teases for the Gifts of the Titans book? I guess that one is to me, since I'm the only one here who wrote on it. I will mention that it was meant. If you watched yesterday's panel, there was discussion about heroic versus immortal, and then Scion versus Titanic, Nax. And I did go into that by starting off by making a list of every knack per calling and taking a look at which ones had the most heroic, which ones had the most, and going through that and use that as a guide when writing up the knacks in that book. It was by no means going to level the playing field, but it is going to take a step in the right direction for addressing both of those questions. And then I did the boons as well, and that's the light part of the writing. You're going to see a lot of amazing birth rates in there. So, all right.
Excellent.
Right. Next question. What is the best starting point for someone academically challenged to learn more about mythology? Apparently, this one is to me as well. Wikipedia.
Wikipedia generally cites their sources,
Yeah. It's you can start there and find read through and find something like. But you can also find the source and go on and dig deeper into things from there. And I will let people who know more.
There's also some channels on YouTube that don't go in a proper way and sort of light way over mythologies that can be an entry point if you find difficult to approach it from a more academical standpoint.
I know on YouTube, Overly Sarcastic Productions does really good mythology things when they do them, and they especially remind you that sometimes things are just not clear and you can't fill in the details of it, or they change and you're not quite sure why, because we don't have this constant trajectory of development. So I like them for that. For written sources, I'd say ask me on the Onyx Path Discord. I'd have to look at my bookshelf, but I do have a few around. You can find specific websites. Theoi.com is great for doing any of the Greek gods. I think it's ancienttext.org has the primary sources for a lot of Irish and Welsh material. So it's good, but those are rough stories to read going at it from primary sources. So you might want to go for a secondary one. But yeah, they are around. You can probably get ones that are not too hard. I mean, Neil Gaiman's book on
Norse mythology.
Yeah, is fun, and it's good to read or listen to the audiobook. Telling that, what? Apparently you can watch Monkey Kid. Will it teach you about Sun Wukong? Not entirely, but it'll give you the idea. It'll give you enough for Scion, I would say.
All right. We got a question here. Do you have any thoughts on other optional types of scions, dragonairs, mythoscions, things of those nature?
They're neat.
Yeah, and I'll say that dragons are, I personally consider optional to a point. I mean, I consider them part of the world. I think they are part of Scion, whereas I do love Mythos Scion, but I do consider them more optional. But both are neat, and so I can say that the God Companion didn't forget about either, and you'll get options to play them up to God level as you want, and so you're. We like I always enjoy to say, we are like in Little Stitch. We are family, and we don't forget about anyone, and we bring them together into the end.
All right. Yeah. As far as how I treat I treat dragons in my Scion games as where they would fit as if Scion was a game. I still will include dragons. That's just but Scion Dragon isn't necessarily part of the story I tell when
Yeah.
at my personal table. Um, doesn't mean that you can't sometime or it's something that I keep separate. If I'm going to run and include dragons, I'm going to do a dragon specific game, kind of like how people would do a mythos specific game.
Yeah, Dragon are by design very hidden, so you can totally have a Scion game without them appearing. Absolutely.
All right. Uh, Follow up to the comments on items that aren't relics. Are there plans to expand on vehicles or other types of equipment?
I'll take this if for anything I have an answer. If anyone else wants to confirm hearing it, there's been some discussion about possibly doing something in that sense, but it's all very writers talking. There's nothing official at this point. But so the answer is just we're talking about that from time to time, perhaps waiting for the right book to find space for that. So it's not something we don't consider at all.
And at some point, I still want to do my Scion Big Book of Guns,
I want you to do your Scion Big Book of Guns so
which
much.
is
Genius.
just
so much.
lovingly detailed descriptions, and they all have
Very,
other
very
spots
detailed.
because we don't really care.
um, I, I can't speak with any authority on this, and I was half napping through the panel when they were talking about it in Mythic Charts. I believe there's something in dealing with space travel of some sort. I imagine there's going to be tags in there. There's something that is going to be dealing with mechs, so that's something that will probably have some sort of vehicle tags. I'm sure mechs will have, but it's not something that I didn't work on. I can't answer.
I think we can
didn't
tease.
work on it. Somebody would probably have been injured severely if there was a kaiju game that he wasn't a part of. So they might have
Oh,
some mitigation.
yes. That's thank you for knowing me so well, Zaki. I really appreciate that. Uh, yes. Well, but jokes aside, and my love, my excessive love for casual side, I'll say that I think we can tease that the various genres in Mythic Shards do deliver the tools to allow people to run them. And I'll leave that sentence hang for people to
All right.
do
And
conjectures about it.
final question before we say our goodbyes and raid over to the closing ceremonies. Any plans for god tier expansions or rules for saints and scions or sorcerers?
Not impossible, none that I either know of or can talk about, one or the other.
It's a bit beyond the veil, because we are thinking about that as well, just as with the equipment. Nothing more, nothing less. Will be vague, and so you can't quote us on anything there. Sorry, I'm being really the dev here. I'm sorry.
Nothing that I'm aware of, but there's very few things that I'm aware
No.
of. There's 18 something books coming out that were
No.
announced, and I've touched 4 of them. So
Neither of us is Hiromi. Yes, we can't we can't match Hiromi's awesomeness. So nothing I'm aware of either. Sorry.
all right.
Well, in
That's
that
all
case,
the questions we have, I believe.
I think we will wrap up here. So thank you again for everyone who came out to be on the panel. Thank you for everyone in the audience. Thank you for the questions. You can generally find us on the Onyx Path Discord, hiding in various places. So always feel free to say hello. And otherwise, off to the ceremonies with you.
Bye. Have a wonderful time.
It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
See you around.